This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Today on CityCast Boise, this Friday packs a punch with a Supreme Court decision that has major implications for abortion pills and healthcare access in Idaho. Boise has taken the reins on historic Union Block repairs, plus CityCast Boise is turning 2. It's Friday, June 14th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. TGIF, Frankie, welcome to Friday.
Yeah, we made it, and there's some news to get into for sure.
Yeah, let's jump right into it because there is a lot. The Supreme Court yesterday just dismissed a pretty major case on mifepristone.
Yeah, the so-called abortion pill, as most folks know it. This has been a case that we've been waiting for a long time. It's been one of the, Supreme Court rulings that have been kind of, especially when it comes to anyone interested in abortion access, has been very closely following this. And they just dismissed it and out of hand completely on Thursday, not ruling in any way on the morality, on the arguments, but on the question of standing, which that's a whole other thing. But it's basically that the folks that brought this case, the Texas in particular, when it came up through the Texas courts by this coalition of anti-abortion medical organizations, brought this, that basically the Supreme Court said, you don't have standing in this case. This doesn't affect you directly. So we're going to say goodbye to this one and move on to the many other cases we have on our docket.
Yeah, so the case was brought by the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, which, like you said, is an anti-abortion group with some doctors, and they were bringing a lawsuit against the FDA. And so I actually think that is really what it came down to, and the reason that we got the ruling that we did is because it would have so drastically affected the FDA's ability to change regulations for medications as they get more data. And that could have far-reaching implications for every single medication on the market and for that entire institution. And so lots and lots of doctors and drug manufacturers and people within the FDA wrote the Supreme Court and said, hey, this will basically dismantle the FDA and our ability to regulate medications in this entire country. So as much as I think that this was an important ruling for, lots of different reasons, I think it did ultimately come down to, I don't think the Supreme Court wanted to dismantle the FDA right now.
Right. Sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. And of course, we're covering this in Idaho and in Boise because it has very clear ramifications for our state that, medical abortion pills has been one of the only ways for people to access abortion care in the state since Roe v. Wade fell 2 years ago, and since the state's very restrictive abortion bans went into place. And so, people access abortion pills online, right? They get mailed them. That was a big element of this case.
Yeah.
And so even though they can't go to a clinic in Idaho to get an abortion, people can still access mifepristone and have been able to even in the last 2 years. And isn't it true that, this is a really common way to seek abortion care, right? Is the abortion pill.
Yeah. So just like a little bit of background, medical abortions, more than half of people who terminate pregnancies do so with a medical abortion, per reporting from NPR. And so, what that consists of is a use of two medications: mifepristone, the one that was being challenged in this lawsuit, and misoprostol. And so, those drugs combined can terminate a pregnancy. And that mifepristone was approved for that use by the FDA in 2000. And then in 2016, there was a major change in the regulation where it was approved for use up to 10 weeks gestation from 7 weeks.
Okay.
And this is an important distinction, and just a little, as a nurse, I'm going to take a little dive.
Be our medical expert here, Lindsay,
So,
for a second.
Gestation is calculated from the first day of your last period. And if you're familiar with a menstrual cycle, the first day of your last period is usually about a week to 2 weeks before you ovulate. And so when we're calculating, let's say you're 5 weeks pregnant, 5 weeks gestation, truly you're only about 3 weeks pregnant. So it's an important distinction, because people will, I've heard people say, well, you're pregnant for 5 weeks. That's over a month. Why didn't you take care of it?
Right.
Truly, you only were pregnant for 3 weeks. You probably only know for about 1 week, if you know at all. Usually people find out between 4 to 6 weeks. And so with it being only approved for 7 weeks, that's a really quick turnaround. You have to find out you're pregnant, decide whether you want to be pregnant, find a doctor, get into the doctor, take the medication. Like, that is a really, really tight time frame.
Right.
And so they increased that to 10 weeks, just for more accessibility for people, and limited the amount of in-person doctor visits you needed from 3 to 1. So that was a major change that happened in 2016, based on data for 16 years from this drug being approved, that would be safe and effective for people. And then in 2021, because of the pandemic, they got rid of the regulation that you needed an in-person doctor's appointment.
Big change.
Yeah, huge change, that you could access this through telemedicine. And they made that change because there was just kind of a natural experiment that took place where people couldn't go to the doctor, and so they were being prescribed this medication over telehealth, and there were no major changes in complications or risk. It was very much the same as if you saw a doctor in person. And so the ability to get it through telehealth has heavily impacted states with abortion bans, because you can access these medications through a telehealth appointment with a doctor in another state, and then order these medications, because these other states have things called shield laws so let's talk about Idaho. Idaho has an abortion ban. But if you live in another state that doesn't have an abortion ban, you're a doctor and you want to do a telehealth visit with someone from Idaho, several states have shield laws where the doctors are protected from prosecution by offering telehealth visits to people in Idaho.
Right. That's such an important distinction, and important piece in all of this.
Yeah. And so that was going to be something that was going to be heavily impacted potentially by this decision, is your ability to access these medications via mail. And that is something that a lot of these anti-abortion groups don't like, is that speaking just about the Idaho abortion bans, the laws target the doctors.
Right.
So technically, very technically in Idaho, it is not illegal to take abortion medications in Idaho if you are the person who is pregnant.
It's illegal to prescribe them.
It's illegal to prescribe them. It's illegal to consult someone to have an abortion. That it's illegal for the healthcare provider. It's not illegal for the person who is pregnant.
Right.
So in Idaho right now, there isn't any illegality to ordering abortion medications and having a telehealth visit with a doctor in another state. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that you can have a telehealth visit with a doctor in another state, be prescribed abortion medications and order them through the mail. That's not illegal in the state of Idaho. But one thing that these anti-abortion groups are kind of coming for, and that this was maybe the first step in these laws, or what they're trying to do to challenge access to abortion, is they kind of want to recreate the Comstock Act. And the Comstock Act was a law from the 19th century that prohibited the mailing of things that were, quote, indecent or immoral.
Very subjective words.
Very subjective,
Yeah.
very subjective. And for obvious reasons, fell out of favor in the 20th century.
Mhm.
So it's basically become a defunct law. But the plaintiffs in this case wanted to argue that the FDA's recategorization and regulation of mifepristone as a medication that could be used in telehealth and then mailed was in violation of this law and was a huge problem. And so that would have severely restricted access to abortion medications for everyone in all 50 states, but would have been particularly devastating for these states that have near total abortion bans, where people's really only access to abortion is their ability to get a telehealth visit and have these medications mailed to them. So
Right.
the dismissal of this case is huge for people in Idaho who are looking for a medication abortion.
Yeah. I'm so glad you wrote that down, the clarity around no, it is not actually illegal to get an abortion under this context in Idaho. It's that it's illegal for the doctors. And I think that, even you and I, when we're talking, we're like, oh yeah, there's abortion bans. It's just like it's a phrase we use. But I think that, yeah, some people are like, oh, well, I mean, I couldn't even access, some people might think that they couldn't even access these drugs very legally, by consulting with a doctor in another state, which is in the age of, telehealth and everything that's advanced, certainly since the pandemic, as you pointed out. I mean, there are companies, there are nonprofits out there, like there's a whole world that's been created that allows for people to really do this very easily. But yeah, I think some people might still be confused about what's illegal and what's not, and who is actually at the end, the target of the bans in Idaho.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely. And I think the nature of the laws, the chilling effect of the laws, there's concern about healthcare providers talking about that, about making that clear. And I think there's just a lot of confusion that does not benefit people looking for access to healthcare. And so, yeah, this dismissal of this case, that doesn't mean it's done forever.
It might not, yeah.
And Raul Labrador, our attorney general, was very quick to want to jump on this case because of his politics. And, he's Republican. This is, the Idaho Republican Party platform states that they are very anti-abortion. And so he jumped on this. So there are other avenues that they can pursue in the future. We'll kind of have to see what they do. But for right now, it was just completely dismissed. So as of today, right now in Idaho, the abortion bans are still in place. But if you get a visit with a telehealth provider and you are prescribed mifepristone and misoprostol, you can still have a medical abortion up to a certain gestation. So that's, you're going to need to talk to a healthcare provider about what is safe, what you should do. We are not healthcare providers. We are not providing healthcare advice, but that is not illegal in the state of Idaho. And one last thing I wanted to touch on too is that mifepristone is often used in conjunction with misoprostol for miscarriages.
Right.
That's a pretty common use of these medications. And so getting mifepristone basically banned or not able to be prescribed would have been devastating for all the people who have miscarriages where that is the most effective treatment. So truly, so many people could have been harmed depending on how this ruling went. So it was a huge, huge, huge win.
Yeah, it seems like people are, who want to see this abortion access still available. They're feeling a lot of relief, but at the same time wary because, as you mentioned, it might not be over. I mean, Idaho and Attorney General Labrador, I think we could see this come back in another form, just not at the Supreme Court level, and at least not with this current because of the standing issue that they ruled unanimously. Even I think we mentioned that, but that's, it was interesting to see a unanimous decision. You don't see that very often, but
no,
it just
very
came
unusual.
down. It just came down to standing and is dismissed. Of course, though, Lindsay, before we wrap up, should note we are waiting on another very important case. And this one originates in Idaho. The mifepristone abortion pill case originated in Texas, as we said. But the Idaho one, we are still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on the question of emergency abortions, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's the EMTALA case, or, your access to an abortion in an emergency. If you're going to an emergency room, what kind of healthcare you have access to as a pregnant person. So yeah, that is definitely a case to watch. We'll have to see if we see anything soon. Probably not this week, but we're going to, June is the month of the many rulings. So we'll see what happens with that.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
Frankie, did you see that there has been some movement in the Union Block building issue within Boise, and kind of the city of Boise is kind of taking matters into their own hands?
Yeah. So as a review, and for anyone who's been downtown recently and has driven past the Union Block on Idaho, you know very well that that lane is still closed, the sidewalk is still closed. It has been under construction for a very, 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 very long time. We've talked about this several times on the Friday show, and yeah, the latest update is that the owner was sent a letter. Boise Dev broke this story last week, that basically the city of Boise said, hey, owner, you missed your deadline on getting those repairs done, so we have to take charge now, at least when it comes to the facade of the building. And this is, been a longstanding issue. The owner, Ken Howell, with Park Lane Management, he's the one who owns the building. And the Union Block building, it's a beautiful building. It's historic. It's there's been lots of different businesses and event spaces and things that have been in there throughout the years. And so I don't know. I'm just kind of sad to see it be in kind of disarray. And of course, it's obviously incredibly inconvenient. And for the businesses that had been tenants in the Union Block, everything got upended when they had to move out because of the building literally falling apart.
Yeah, it was really a disruption, and it's very centrally located. And so it's an area where lots of people are walking and biking. And so it is kind of a danger to have it be structurally unsound right in the middle of town where so many people are.
And there's actually straps that are helping to hold up the columns in front right now, which is certainly seems like a temporary measure to maintain.
Doesn't seem like a long-term solution to maintain that building.
Yeah. So going back to what where this all started was the management company that owned the building was doing some excavation work to try to update some things and make the building more useful. But all that excavation, basically in the basement, the building literally starting to fall apart. Yeah. I think about those businesses that, have had to move on, like Mai Tai that was in the Union Block for many years. They had to move to delivery only. They also experienced a fire in their kitchen.
I was going to say they had a bad couple of months.
Oh, yeah, some bad luck.
That was really rough.
For sure. And then and Moon's Cafe, classic diner in the Union Block, they had to move to a new space over on 8th Street. And then another Balsam Brands, the fake tree store, they also moved to another downtown building. So it's not just affecting the owner, it's affecting the people who are also renting and using that space for their small businesses.
Yeah, has been very disruptive for those businesses, I'm sure. Frankie, do you know, has there been any response from the owner of the building?
Yeah, so the Idaho Statesman had this story about, also followed up on after Boise Dev broke this. And yeah, Ken Howell has said that, he wants to, quote, wrap up the project. He is suing the city over the building's forced closure, which, yeah, it's been closed, forced closure since November. And so, I mean, yeah, it seems like this legal tussle is going to keep going back and forth. But again, this Union Block building being a 1902 building and a Boise landmark. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It's something I think a lot of Boiseans care a lot about. And we'll keep monitoring this story. But this is the latest iteration of it. Is the city's going to take over at least this part of the repair and bill the owner for whatever those repairs cost. Lindsay, I would love to know, what's your pick of the week? What are you excited about? What's going on in your world? What's something that you want to share for your pick of the week?
Oh, I am so excited that the heat wave is ending on Saturday.
Are you already over it? You're like, okay, that's enough.
I'm just, I had a surgery recently. So like too much heat feels a little too much for me. And I really want to get outside and enjoy summer. So I'm really excited about a little bit of a reprieve from the extreme heat. I still want it warm. I want it lovely. Sure. But for right now, I'm like, okay, we get a few days right over the weekend where it's just going to be perfect weather, perfect for being outside, for walks. And, it's just, I'm really excited to have some outdoor time and not feel like I'm melting.
Yeah, fair enough. It is only early June still. We're not quite to the halfway June mark. So, nice to see some 74, 71 on Sunday, sunny. Yeah. Definitely good for gardening, for hanging out in your backyard. Yeah.
It's really perfect weather for your being on a patio, going on a walk, and it's over the weekend. We never get the perfect weather over the weekend.
It's so true. That's such a good point. Yeah.
This is a rare weekend of perfect weather. What about you, Frankie? What's your top pick of the week?
Okay, my top pick of the week is that it has been 2 years since CityCast Boise and the Hey Boise newsletter launched. We are 2 years old.
We're 2 years old. We're a toddler.
We are toddlering around in the world. And without getting too sappy, I just think it's nice to stop and reflect on all the great stories that we've been able to cover, and honestly, the audience that we've built. And if you are listening and you've been with us since the beginning, thanks for sticking with us. Sometimes I listen back to some of our first episodes that first month and I cringe a little bit. But we've come a long way, and we've been able to tell so many great stories about Boise. And our Hey Boise newsletter just hit over 500 editions. Newsletter editor Blake Hunter has sent out over 500 emails to your inbox. So it's incredible, and it's it's nice every once in a while to look back and go, wow, look how far we've come. So happy second birthday to us.
Yeah, happy 2 years to us. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by Up Is the Down Is The. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back Monday with the summer restaurants you need to be eating at right now. You won't want to miss it.